Chris Tryon, and I'm part of Baby Lock education team, and I'm here to show you what you can do with the Euphoria. This machine is a cover stitch and chain stitch machine, and probably what's running through your mind right now is, well, that is usually just used for hemming. My t-shirts, my activewear, whatever type of garments, and maybe a little light construction. But what I've done is I've actually created samples such as this bag, and it's actually an upcycle piece that I used an old plastic bag, and the top is what I created using the chain stitch piecing, chain stitch quilting, and actually even putting in the zipper using the chain stitch. No straight stitch on my sewing machine, all done with the chain stitch. The next sample is a table runner that was also constructed using the chain stitch. So all of this was done on the chain stitch. Perfect 1/4 inch piecing. Best part is, if something isn't lined up, I can easily take it out. All the quilting was done using the chain stitch and actually attaching the binding and stitching the binding in place, all done with the chain stitch. The next project is another table runner. And in this case, it's more of a kind of an applique and a piecing piece. So again, construction was done using the chain stitch, and then the decoration or quilting was done using the chain stitch. And the great thing about the chain stitch is I can use either side. And by that I mean I can place a decorative thread in my needle and stitch from the right side, or I can place a decorative thread in my chain looper and stitch from the wrong side, and then what happens is the pretty chain stitch shows on that right side. Here is a more intricate table runner, and this one actually combines not only the chain stitch and decorating with or quilting with the chain stitch, attaching the binding, but I also added another unique stitch, which is the sashiko stitch, to give it a little bit of pizzazz or that unique look. Now, as far as construction or piecing on the Euphoria using that chain stitch, this is a quilt that I have done, and this is all bias. So I think that's one of the things when you're on your sewing machine and you're creating a project using bias, you're concerned about everything stretching out. I have to tell you, when this was done, my points all match. I had, my fabric did not stretch, but it was quick and it was easy. And again, if I ran into an issue where I needed to undo a stitch, it was probably half the time as what it would take of undoing a sewing machine stitch. So you can see by looking at this sample, I think this is probably a really dynamic example of piecing using the chain stitch and getting that perfect or that ideal 1/4 inch. This is another favorite project of mine, and it is actually a tote bag. And what's fun about this tote bag is you can see that you have all of this curved piecing. Again, all done on the serger using that chain stitch. And because I have differential feed on the serger, I was able to ease in my curves rather than having to pin everything in place. And that made it a little easier for myself and actually a little quicker. The binding was attached, again, using the chain stitch, and one of the many attachments, in this case, it was the double fold bias binder that we have available for our serger line and for the Euphoria. Backside, it was quilted. That is what I call diamond quilting, and then of course channeled quilting. And this also had what they call is that the foam. So you can see that I was able to go through that thickness with this project using the chain stitch. And one of my favorite projects to always do, or one of my favorite samples, is pillows. I think they're a great exercise in learning new techniques or working with new accessory feet, because it's something small and simple and you can easily complete it. So in this case, the piping was actually created using the serger with the chain stitch, also inserting it with the chain stitch. You can see, again, I have piecing, and this is a nice chevron pattern, and then all that straight line quilting that you see was done with the chain stitch. And in this case, I probably used something like the open toe foot, which made it really easy to see my marked lines. And here's another example of piecing and quilting with the chain stitch. Again, that open toe foot really helped when I was creating those straight lines, because I think sometimes what happens is it becomes down to visibility, and having that open toe foot made a big difference. It combined not only straight line piecing and straight line quilting, but you also have angle lines. So I was able to turn those points using the chain stitch, and that was really pretty slick and easy. And again, the binding was attached and then top stitched using the chain stitch. So everything on this project was done on the serger. Now this is probably one of my favorite explorations into playing with decorative threads. In this case, what was done is everything is pieced on the outer sides using the chain stitch. So it's just simple straight piecing. The circles were fused on, and then what I did was I decorated across the entire set of circles using the chain stitch. Again, placing that thread or decorative thread in my needle, and then at times placing it in the chain looper, and I just went back and forth with as far as if the decorative thread was in the chain looper, I placed my fabric wrong side up and just followed the original lines that were stitched. And I think that this is a really unique and fun way to play with decorative threads and play with your creativity. You'll be surprised to how easy it is to expand past just sewing or stitching straight lines. And then this is, I think, a really easy project to get yourself into the mindset, because for me that was the hardest thing when I took the step out of using my serger just for garment construction, is what else could I do with it. This was one of the easiest projects to do because the piecing was really simple. It's a pattern that was, I think, for me, a really pleasing pattern. It's really long, and then the quilting was short because I just went from side to side rather than going from top to bottom. But using things such as that open toe foot or even a quilt guide make the alignment for those lines or the spacing for those lines so much easier. And then the last project I have to show you is, this is just a little iPad case, a little mini iPad case. And what's great about this one is it uses, again, the technique of decorative threads. The binding was attached using that chain stitch. The quilting was using the chain stitch. The zipper was inserted using the chain stitch. And let's see, what else did I do here? Oh, this back rim right here. This is actually an attachment called the belt loop binder. So that was actually created first, and then using fusible thread in that chain looper, it was fused in place. So that was all set. So now that I've inspired you with all of my projects to look at the Euphoria as a machine that is more than just for garment stories, I invite you to visit your Baby Lock retailer to have them sit down and show you exactly what this machine can do.